It's the Side Quest Podcast.
Imagine taking the cash you would normally spend on a, slightly battered used Honda Civic.
Right, like maybe a few $1,000.
Yeah, exactly. You dump that money into a wild, highly experimental project, you cross your fingers, and a little while later, that project hands you back $250 million.
I mean, that sounds like a typo. Or, maybe a highly orchestrated financial crime.
It really does sound completely impossible. But that is actually the exact math behind what happened in the summer of 1999.
It's just wild to even think about today.
It really is. Welcome to the Deep Dives, by the way. Today, our mission is to explore a literal cultural earthquake. We are looking at a stack of sources detailing how a micro-budget 81-minute indie film called The Blair Witch Project fundamentally rewrote the rules of cinema.
And we're going to figure out how this tiny movie birthed modern viral marketing, changed pop culture forever, and left a really complicated legacy for the people who actually made it.
Yeah, because the contrast in the material we're looking at today is just staggering.
Oh, absolutely. We have the movie's origins as this raw film school concept, the Guinness World Record it's set for the highest box office return on investment in cinema history, and, the fake internet playbook that basically invented a new way to sell media.
But balancing all that financial triumph is the decades-long fallout for the cast.
Right, which is a huge part of this. It's a story of undeniably massive profits built on the backs of tiny budgets and, frankly, unprotected labor.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can even begin to talk about the money, the lawsuits, or the legacy, we need to do some mental time travel.
Always a good idea with this one.
Picture it is the late 90s. There are no smartphones.
No social media at all.
Right. If your buddy tells you a wild rumor they read online, you can't just cross-reference it on your phone or check Wikipedia in 5 seconds.
You'd literally have to go to a library or just trust the gut feeling of whatever message board you were browsing.
Exactly. You have to really put yourself in that headspace to understand how millions of people were genuinely, legitimately tricked by this movie.
And that technological friction is kind of the whole ballgame. Because to understand the ultimate 248.6 million global gross, we have to look at the incredibly lean machinery that generated it.
Which is just shockingly lean.
Yeah, the estimated production budget of this film is famously low, around $60,000, and some sources put the bare shooting costs even lower, at just $35,000.
Wow. Just $35,000 for the actual shoot.
Right. Even if we factor in the post-production sound design and the finishing work they did before taking it to the Sundance Film Festival, the absolute highest estimate is around $750,000.
Which, in Hollywood terms, wouldn't even cover the catering budget for a modern superhero movie.
Oh, not even close. Not even a fraction of it. And the concept started way back in 1993 with two film students at the University of Central Florida, Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez.
And they weren't interested in, writing a traditional ghost story with jump scares and a rubber monster suit, right?
Yeah. No, not at all. They wanted to create a fake mythology. They conceived of a witch legend deeply rooted in a real-sounding town in Maryland, and their goal was to present a film as if it were actual, recovered documentary footage of that legend.
So they formed this production company, Haxon Films, and instead of a script with dialogue, they just write a 35-page outline of story beats.
Just an outline, no specific lines to memorize.
Right. Then, around 1996 or 1997, they put an ad in Backstage magazine. They're looking for non-union actors with strong improv skills who are willing to shoot in the woods under grueling conditions.
But the hook was that it offered actual pay, travel, and meals.
Which, was a pretty sweet deal for an indie gig at the time.
It really was. And that promise of a steady, albeit modest paycheck brought in about 2,000 hopefuls.
2,000 people auditioned for this.
Yeah. And the filmmakers ultimately selected three relatively unknown actors, Heather Donahue, Michael C. Williams, and Joshua Leonard.
And the very first decision the filmmakers made is arguably their most brilliant, but also their most ruthless.
Oh, having them use their real names.
Exactly. They decided the characters would share the actors' real first and last names. They completely erased the boundary between the person and the character.
Plus, Joshua Leonard actually knew how to operate a camera, which was essential. There was no traditional film crew standing around holding boom mics. The actors were the camera operators.
Which leads us to the shoot itself, 8 days in Seneca Creek, Maryland. And the mechanics of how they filmed this, I have to be honest, it sounds less like a movie set and more like an extreme survivalist escape room.
An escape room where the people running it throw away the rule book and just decide to torture you?
Exactly. It was an incredible psychological experiment.
Yeah, Myrick and Sanchez handed the actors two pieces of equipment, a 16mm film camera and a high-8 video camera.
And for anyone who doesn't remember the 90s, a high-8 camera is basically that clunky handheld camcorder your dad used to film family vacations.
Exactly. The resolution is terrible, the audio is constantly peaking, but because of that, it instantly codes as real life to our brains.
Right. It feels authentic.
That was exactly the point. They also gave them some basic sound equipment and GPS units. Then, the directors essentially let them loose.
Just wandering out there.
Yeah. The actors had to navigate the woods entirely on their own. The crew stayed completely out of sight, stalking them through the forest.
Which is so creepy.
It is. They would drop little caches of food at specific GPS coordinates, leave fresh batteries, and provide written prompts for what beats to improvise next.
But the nighttime is when it gets really twisted. The crew intentionally harassed them.
Oh yeah, they didn't hold back.
The actors would be trying to sleep, and the directors would sneak up, shape your tents in the pitch black, and play terrifying noises through boom boxes hidden in the trees.
Just blasting scary sounds in the middle of nowhere.
Right. They were deliberately keeping the cast awake, slowly cutting their food rations, and manufacturing real physical and emotional exhaustion.
It's intense.
Honestly, I have to push back on even calling this acting at a certain point. When you are isolated, sleep-deprived, freezing cold, and invisible people are shaking your tent at 3 a.m., you aren't pulling from some deep theatrical training. You're just filming your own genuine misery.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is how that absolute necessity, the lack of money for sets, lighting, or a traditional crew forced a totally new kind of authenticity.
It made it real.
Exactly. When you watch the 20 hours of raw footage they captured, the line between performer and documentary subject is just completely gone.
Because they were actually cold.
They were cold, genuinely frightened, and entirely unsure of what the directors were going to do next. The panic you see on screen is real.
It didn't look like conventional scripted horror because it wasn't.
Right. It was a recorded physical ordeal that they later chopped up and edited down into a lean 81-minute narrative.
So they have this terrifying, hyper-authentic 81-minute tape. But authentic misery doesn't automatically sell movie tickets.
No, it doesn't.
How do you convince millions of people to go to a theater to watch a movie with zero recognizable stars, zero special effects, and terrible lighting?
You don't sell the movie at all. You sell mystery.
Okay, that pivot is where the story shifts from indie filmmaking to industry-defining marketing.
Absolutely. Artisan Entertainment caught a midnight screening of the film at Sundance in January 1999. They bought the distribution rights for $1.1 million.
Which is already a massive return on a $60,000 investment.
Huge. But Artisan didn't stop there. They turned around and spent roughly $25 million to market the film.
Wait, I'm stuck on this $25 million marketing budget. If the whole appeal of the movie is that it looks like it was shot on a home camcorder by 3 missing college kids, wouldn't a slick, multi-million-dollar marketing campaign instantly ruin the illusion?
You would think so, right?
Yeah. If I see a giant billboard on Sunset Boulevard, I'm going to know it's a Hollywood product.
But that is the genius of what Artisan did. It was an anti-marketing campaign. They didn't buy glossy billboards or run traditional trailer spots with an announcer saying, "Coming to a theater near you."
So what did they do with all that money?
Well, a full year before the wide release, in 1998, they launched a website. Now, dedicated promotional websites for movies barely existed at that point.
Yeah, the internet was basically still dial-up then.
Exactly. But this site didn't announce a movie. It presented itself as a repository of actual evidence.
Right. It had a painstakingly detailed timeline of the Blair Witch legend going all the way back to the 18th century.
It had fake police reports.
It had photos of the car the kids supposedly abandoned. It featured audio clips recovered from the woods. And most importantly, it had message boards where real people were intensely debating what had happened to these missing students.
And before the film even hit wide release, that website generated 20 million page views.
20 million.
Yes, it was literally crashing servers because so many people were logging on to play detective.
And that online mythology was heavily reinforced by offline tactics, right?
Oh, big time. Artisans sent street teams to college campuses to hand out standard black and white missing person flyers.
Just regular-looking flyers.
Yeah, they even handed them out at the incredibly prestigious Cannes Film Festival. And to maintain the illusion, they essentially hid the cast from the world.
Wait, hid them how? Like Physically.
Contractually and practically, Artisan barred the actors from making public appearances. Heather Donahue's publicist wasn't allowed to book any interviews for her.
That's crazy. So they were actors in a hit movie who couldn't even say they were actors.
Exactly. The studio actively discouraged the cast from confirming they were alive and working actors while simultaneously plastering their faces on missing posters worldwide.
Oh, wow.
They even aired a mockumentary on the Sci-Fi Channel called Curse of the Blair Witch that presented the whole legend through fake newsreels and staged interviews with experts.
It was a massive commercial, disguised entirely as investigative journalism. Honestly, look at that website or those flyers today. Do you think you would have fallen for it?
It's tough to say now.
It seems so obvious in retrospect. But the deception went so deep that IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, actually listed the cast as missing, presumed dead.
I know, that part is unbelievable.
They weaponized an emerging professional database to trick the general public. It just blows my mind.
It's hard to overstate how perfectly calibrated this was for that specific window of the internet. Think about the psychology of the web in 1998 and 1999.
It was the Wild West.
It really was. Search engines were incredibly primitive. If a website presented an official-looking police report, your first instinct wasn't to highlight the text, right-click, and search for a debunking article.
Your instinct was curiosity.
Exactly. The campaign worked because inviting people to investigate a mystery feels like you're sharing genuine underground information, not passing around a corporate advertisement.
That makes total sense.
The website, the TV special, the flyers, the actors, forced silence, it all pointed in the exact same direction. Millions of people were deeply invested in solving the mystery before a single ticket was sold.
And when those tickets did go on sale, the floodgates opened. They started with a limited release at the Angelica Film Center in New York, let the word of mouth reach a fever pitch, and then boom, they expanded to over 1,100 screens.
And they made $48 million in a single week.
Just staggering.
And that momentum carried it to nearly $248.6 million globally. Which brings us back to that Guinness World Record.
Right, the ROI.
When you calculate a $248 million return against an initial production budget of roughly $60,000, you are looking at an incomprehensible profit margin. It is widely cited as the most profitable film of all time based on return on investment.
But here's the thing. The marketing trick gets people into the theater, sure. But if the movie is just an hour of boring, shaky trees, the word of mouth dies by Saturday morning, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The movie actually had to deliver, so why did it work so well on a cinematic level?
Because it relied almost entirely on the power of suggestion. There is no monster on screen, no CGI, no blood.
None at all.
The horror is purely psychological. It's a pile of rocks outside a tent. It's weird stick figures hanging from branches. It's distant, unexplainable noises in the dark.
Because they couldn't afford to show you anything terrifying, they forced your own imagination to fill in the blanks.
And your imagination is always infinitely more terrifying than anything a director can build in a prop shop.
It also single-handedly captured the mainstream audience for the found footage genre. The sources note it wasn't technically the first to do this. A movie called Cannibal Holocaust played with the format back in 1980, but Blair Witch established the definitive template.
The first-person perspective, the lack of a musical score.
Exactly. The raw video texture and the abrupt, ambiguous ending.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the industry ripple effect was just profound. Blair Witch proved that a sustainable, highly lucrative subgenre could be built on this exact model of suggestion over spectacle.
It birthed a whole new era of horror.
It did. You can trace a direct line from 1999 to 2007's Paranormal Activity, which was made for around $15,000 and grossed nearly $200 million.
That's insane.
And Cloverfield adapted the aesthetic for a giant monster movie in 2008. Entire modern studios like Blumhouse built their business models on this playbook: tiny production budgets, high concepts, and lean, digitally optimized marketing.
So what does this all mean? To me, the Blair Witch Project is basically the patient zero of the modern creator economy.
Oh, I like that comparison.
Long before YouTube or TikTok, it sent a shockwave through Hollywood, proving that a couple of unknown kids with a cheap camera and a brilliant hook could absolutely obliterate a $100 million studio spectacle at the box office.
It totally democratized the idea of who gets to make a hit.
Exactly.
But, while it did democratize the barrier to entry, we have to be careful not to mistake a cultural phenomenon for a reproducible formula.
Because the studio certainly tried to replicate it.
They did, but the specific Blair Witch phenomenon was bottled lightning. The immediate sequel, Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2, came out just a year later in 2000.
I remember that one.
Yeah, it dropped the found footage style for a more traditional narrative, and it critically and commercially underperformed.
It just didn't hit the same way.
Even the 2016 follow-up, which returned to the found footage roots, only made about $45 million worldwide despite having a much bigger budget.
Interesting.
It proved that the original's massive success relied heavily on that very specific, unrepeatable moment of internet trust in 1999.
Right. Well, that lightning strike made the studio obscenely rich.
What?
It gave the film industry a brand new playbook. But what about the 3 people whose actual legal names were plastered on missing posters all over the world?
Yeah, this brings us to the most sobering part of the sources we reviewed.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This is where we examine the human cost of $250 million. Let's look back at that original deal from the Backstage magazine ad.
The one that sounded like a sweet deal.
Right. Heather, Michael, and Joshua signed on for a non-union shoot paying about $500 a week. Now, their contract did include a clause that gave them a 1% collective participation in the net profits once the film cleared $1 million.
Okay, a 1% cut of the net profits. That sounds huge on a movie that grossed $248 million.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But net profit in Hollywood is notoriously tricky.
Oh, it's a famously sketchy accounting practice where studios ensure a movie technically never makes a profit on paper.
It's like trying to catch a mirage.
A mirage is the perfect analogy. The studio takes that massive gross revenue, but then they subtract the $25 million marketing budget.
Okay, sure.
They subtract their own distribution fees. They subtract administrative overhead. By the time the accountants are done with the math, that $248 million looks like zero in the net profit column.
Meaning a 1% cut is essentially 1% of nothing. And frankly, it's infuriating because once the film becomes this runaway, historic mega hit, Haxon and the actors negotiate a buyout of those profit participation rights. Each of the 3 actors reportedly receives around $300,000.
Right.
Now, I want to be clear, $300K is a lot of money to a struggling young artist. But we are talking about a movie that grossed roughly $248.6 million.
The math is brutal. It's a microscopic fraction of the ultimate value their actual faces and names generated.
And the financial friction didn't end in 1999 either.
No, in 2002, the actors actually had to sue Artisan over the use of their likenesses in the sequel because they weren't being compensated for that usage either.
That's just rough.
Then jump all the way to 2024. Donahue, who now goes by Ray Hance Williams, and Leonard launched a very public campaign against Lionsgate, the studio that currently controls the franchise.
What were they asking for?
They were asking for retroactive and future residual payments equivalent to what they would have earned under a standard SAG-AFTRA union contract.
Which seems completely fair.
And maybe even more importantly, they asked for meaningful consultation on any future use of their names or likenesses.
Because remember, they didn't just play fictional characters named John and Jane Doe. Their actual identities were the product that was sold.
Exactly. And the original filmmakers, to their credit, publicly supported the actors in this campaign, acknowledging that the cast was totally inseparable from the franchise's authenticity.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this raises an important question about how we view success in the entertainment industry. It highlights a massive, unresolved tension.
Right. You have non-union early career actors who take a massive physical and professional risk on a low-budget passion project.
And when that project explodes into a commercial franchise, they have zero leverage.
They are left entirely at the mercy of the studios holding the distribution rights. The very elements that made the film a masterpiece, the improvised panic, the real names, the physical endurance, were the exact things the actors were never proportionately compensated for.
Which is such a wild contradiction when you look at how this movie is celebrated today. I mean, the Stanford Graduate School of Business actually has a formal case study on the film's marketing strategy.
Oh, wow.
It's taught to future CEOs as a masterclass in return on investment. But if you only look at the brilliance of the cost-to-revenue ratio, you completely erase the human beings who are freezing in the woods and financially sidelined.
So we're left looking at a deeply divided legacy. On one hand, the Blair Witch Project is an undisputed masterpiece of minimalism.
Truly.
It's a marketing triumph that fundamentally shifted pop culture. But its financial legacy looks radically different depending on whether you're examining the studio's bank account or the actor's early contracts.
It manages to be the ultimate indie filmmaking dream and the ultimate labor cautionary tale, all rolled into one 81-minute tape.
And its footprint is literally everywhere today.
Yeah, the next time you see a brilliant viral marketing campaign dropping cryptic clues online, Or you watch a low-budget found-footage horror movie that cleans up at the box office, you are looking directly at The Shadow Cast by Blair Witch,
It remains a foundational piece of internet history.
showing us exactly how an alternate reality can be constructed to sell a narrative.
It really proved the power of blurring the line between fact and fiction and, utilizing the internet as a tool for mass collective storytelling.
Which leaves us with one final thought to ponder. The entire Blair Witch hoax worked because it capitalized on an era where we implicitly trusted the internet.
That's so true.
The friction to fact check was high, and we largely believed what we read online was, by default, probably true.
Right.
But today, we live in an era of AI deepfakes, constant misinformation, and instant skepticism. We assume almost everything we see online is fake from the jump.
We really do.
So, if a group of unknown filmmakers tried to launch a mystery like this today, could a piece of fiction ever unite millions of people in a shared, genuine belief again? Or was the summer of 1999 the very last time we ever truly, collectively, believed a ghost story?